Janet, I think one of the other stories for 2020 is going to be, certainly Australia is going to be known for the bushfire crisis that took place. Scott Morrison, if we have a look at what happened there, I mean, his ratings hit an all-time low. And you'd be forgiven for thinking that Scott Morrison was going to be out of a job in that whole bushfire crisis. He was on holiday in Hawaii. It seemed that he didn't have a care in the world about what was going on. And then we went into COVID-19. I mean, we saw a completely different Scott Morrison emerge out of the chaos. And he really had this appearance of wanting to take Australia through this and guide them through. And we saw almost a personality reinvention there. And now you look at where we're at. I mean, this is a guy that arguably single-handedly flipped his entire political career in just a matter of moments, going from an absolute disgrace of where things were at and now to potentially being in the history books for centuries to come. What's your view on what happened there, and how do you do that? I mean, how do you go from absolute pits of the doldrums then to coming out and looking at what's going on now?
I think that's a really interesting question that management schools will be talking about for some years. I think it shows that you can make mistakes, you can be a regular human, but you really can't afford to do that when you're a leader in whatever circumstances. The fact is, he handled it really badly, whether it was bad advice or not. He takes accountability. I think he was lucky to have another crisis to respond to and do differently. So you never waste that opportunity for crisis, but to his credit, he's shown he's been inclusive. There are commentaries along the lines that he's digging a bit deeper into issues and not being Scotty from marketing, which I think he suffered from before. He's shown some substance. And he's certainly been bold. And I think characteristically, good leaders are bold in times of crisis.
Interesting that we use the word crisis, considering where we are and what's going on today. I mean, we're in the centre of Ballarat here chatting, and there is a crisis going on within the local government. And there's going to be questions about accountability and who handled things correctly. I mean, this is arguably probably the worst time for this to happen for a council. But then looking at accountability and looking at how things have to change within government here. If you were in a magical world back in the city of Ballarat, if you were the CEO or leading any city's municipality, what would you be doing in this world now? If you were given every opportunity to be able to hit the reset button, do things differently, what would you do? I mean, the other thing is worth saying is you've been the CEO of the TAC, you've been the CEO of Ballarat City before, you've been on and are still on the board of Central Highlands Water. You've got perspective in both corporate and also in government, local government across the country. What would you do differently now?
I think you've got to get down to a facilitation role for local government. It's still far too often rule-based. Regulation. People hide behind that. So a leader has to develop a culture of integrity, honesty. I don't mind people making mistakes as long as they learn, but you don't chop people's heads off just because they make a mistake, provided they've considered all the relevant things. So a leader has to generate confidence, has to build an executive team that has the right attitude, communicates well, gets out in the community, supporting the councillors to encourage what's important for the future out there with our creative businesses and engineering facilities. We've got so much here in Ballarat. And local government generally needs to redefine its role